6. Apex predators that can kill humans. There are places on Earth where the line between observer and prey becomes dangerously thin. A calm shoreline can hide a hunter beneath the surface. A quiet snowfield can carry the scent of a starving bear for miles. A riverbank can look harmless until the water itself begins to move. In these landscapes, humans are not always outside the food chain. This is what makes apex predators so unsettling. They do not rely on luck. They survive through power, patience, and precision, shaped over thousands of generations to detect weakness, exploit hesitation, and strike at exactly the right moment. When a human enters that world without protection, the result can be brutally one-sided. So this journey is not a list of the most feared animals on Earth. It is a ranking of predators whose biology, hunting style, and documented history show that a person can become vulnerable in a real encounter. Some do it rarely, some do it when desperate. And one, more than any other on this list, lives in a place where human routine and predatory opportunity meet almost every day. Our path begins in open water, then moves north into drifting ice, across African grasslands, through the forests of Asia, and finally into the shadowed margins of rivers where the surface reveals almost nothing. By the time we reach number 1, the reason for its place will feel unavoidable. At number 6, white shark far from shore, the sea can seem empty. The surface flashes silver, swells rise and fall, and below that thin sheet of light, something heavy moves through colder water with almost no wasted motion. The white shark ranges across temperate and subtropical oceans worldwide, and adults can reach about 20 feet in length and weigh more than 4,000 pounds. It is not just large, it is built for speed in water that slows other fish. NOAA notes that the white shark is regionally endothermic, meaning it can keep its body warmer than the surrounding sea. That internal heat helps power sudden bursts of movement, long migrations, and ambushes near seal colonies where hesitation means failure. And yet, the white shark begins this ranking for an important reason. Humans are not its normal prey. NOAA states plainly that sharks rarely attack people and would much rather feed on fish and marine mammals. The Florida Museum's 2024 Shark Bite Summary described that year as exceptionally calm worldwide, with 47 unprovoked bites and 4 fatalities across all shark species combined. Still, rarity does not mean harmlessness. NOAA's outreach materials place the great white at the top of documented shark attack records, ahead of bull and tiger sharks. A single investigative bite from an animal this size can tear through muscle, open major blood vessels, or leave a swimmer unable to stay afloat long enough to survive the aftermath. That is why the white shark holds the 6th position. It is not here because it frequently hunts people. It is here because if the mistake happens, the force behind that mistake is enormous. And as the ocean falls behind us, the next predator lives in a place where hunger can turn uncertainty into intention. At number 5, polar bear in the Arctic. The landscape does not forgive weakness. Sea ice stretches across the horizon like broken stone, and every movement costs energy. This is the kingdom of the polar bear, a predator tied to ice, because that is where it hunts seals, waits at breathing holes, and patrols the edge between frozen stillness and open water. Unlike most bears, a polar bear is not living beside the marine food web. It is built into it. USGS researchers documented 73 wild polar bear attacks between 1870 and 2014, resulting in 20 human fatalities and 63 injuries. Their conclusion was striking. Most attacks were predatory, and nutritionally stressed adult males were the most likely to threaten human safety. That pattern becomes more chilling when the ice begins to fail. Polar Bears International reported that since 2000, 88% of attacks have occurred between July and December, when sea ice is at its lowest. In those months, more bears are forced onto land, more people move through Arctic coastlines, and the distance between a hungry carnivore and an exposed human becomes smaller. Fatal polar bear attacks also reveal a different kind of threat. According to Polar Bears International, only single bears were involved in fatal incidents. 88% of fatal attacks were predatory, and 93% were committed by males. In rare cases, polar bears were even willing to attack larger groups, something unusual among the world's big bears. So the danger here is not sheer frequency. It is clarity of intent. When a starving polar bear approaches across open ground, there are few trees, few barriers, and often nowhere to disappear. WWF warns that global polar bear numbers are projected to decline as sea ice disappears, which means this is also a predator under growing environmental pressure. From the Arctic, the story moves into warmer country. The ice gives way to dry grass, dust, and the sound of distant hooves. Here, danger no longer comes from a solitary white figure on the horizon. It comes from a society of hunters that can work together in the dark. At number 4, lion across the African savanna. The day slowly drains out of the grass. Heat lifts off the ground, silhouettes harden, and the open plain begins to belong to animals that see well in low light. Lions prefer these landscapes for a reason. WWF notes that although they can survive in many habitats, they typically favor open savannas where stalking prey is easier. The lion is unusual among big cats because it does not live alone. It lives in prides, sometimes with dozens of members, and within those groups, lionesses act as the primary hunters. Much of that work happens at night or early morning, when darkness helps them close distance before the final rush. That combination of teamwork, low-light hunting, and life close to human communities has had deadly consequences. A study in Nature reported that lions killed more than 563 people in Tanzania since 1990 and injured at least 308. The authors found that attacks had increased dramatically during that period. The pattern was not random. Those Tanzanian attacks peaked at harvest time and were most common in areas with few wild prey other than bush pigs, a major nocturnal crop pest. In other words, lions were not just moving through wilderness, they were entering the same agricultural edges where people were working, guarding fields, and returning home after dark. This is what makes the lion more dangerous than the predators below it. A white shark may mistake a human. A polar bear may approach in hunger. But lions can learn the geography of villages, livestock routes, and nighttime human movement. WWF also notes that when prey declines and habitats fragment, lions disperse into human-dominated areas, where conflict escalates quickly. And still, the lion is not higher. However dangerous it can be, humans are not its usual target across most of its range. The next predator on this list is more solitary, more secretive, and in some regions has produced a darker history of people being deliberately taken as prey. At number 3, tiger. The forests of Asia do not reveal their largest cat easily. Bamboo closes the path. Mangroves swallow the horizon. Tall grass bends, then becomes still again. Tigers live across an astonishing range of habitats, from tropical rainforests and temperate woods to mangrove swamps, grasslands, and savannas, but they almost always hunt alone. That solitude is part of their power. WWF notes that tigers rely mainly on sight and sound rather than smell, stalking prey through cover and finishing the attack at close range. They are strongly territorial, usually living alone except for mothers with cubs, and a single animal may control a large hunting ground if prey is available. When forests shrink and prey becomes scarce, that balance begins to fail. WWF warns that tigers and people increasingly compete for space, pushing some cats out of protected areas and into human-dominated land between habitat fragments. In these landscapes, livestock becomes easier to catch, and the risk of attacks on people rises with every forced overlap. The BBC's reporting on man-eating tigers adds another layer. Competition and territorial pressure can force young tigers to leave safer habitat, while old or injured animals may become desperate for food. Experts interviewed in that report explained that once a tiger discovers how vulnerable a human can be, it may lose its natural fear and begin to see people as viable prey. That is why tiger attacks have such a long and haunting place in natural history. They do not usually happen because the tiger is reckless. They happen because the animal is superb at silent approach, and because in the wrong circumstances, it can make a calculated choice. The BBC highlighted the case of T1, or Avni, a tigress linked to at least 13 human deaths, before she was finally shot in 2018, after years of fear and conflict. And yet the tiger also stands as one of conservation's great paradoxes. It is both feared and endangered, both capable of killing a person and vulnerable to being erased by habitat loss, poaching, and retaliation. That tension keeps it at number 3. But the final 2 predators on this list do something even more difficult to survive. They attack from the edge of water, where the first sign of danger may come too late to matter. At number 2, saltwater crocodile. In northern estuaries, danger does not always look alive. A floating branch drifts beside mangrove roots. A tide line darkens the bank. Then the branch turns against the current, and the shape resolves into eyes, nostrils, and a body that was visible only when it decided to be. The saltwater crocodile lives in rivers, estuaries, swamps, lagoons, and billabongs across a vast range from South Asia to northern Australia and the Solomon Islands. It is the largest living reptile on Earth. The Australian Museum reports adult lengths of roughly 3 to 5 meters, with males growing far larger, and one reliably measured individual reaching at least 6.15 meters. Larger crocodiles hunt with almost no display at all, approaching underwater until a final lunge closes the distance in an instant. The scale of attacks is what pushes this animal near the top. The Ahukan Crocodile Specialist Group recorded 1,350 attacks by saltwater crocodiles between 2010 and 2020, including 668 fatal and 682 non-fatal incidents. It also stresses that many attacks in remote places likely go unreported, especially in rural areas where communication and formal monitoring are limited. A crocodile attack is also unlike almost any other entry on this list, because the injury is often only part of the mechanism. A major study of saltwater crocodile attacks in Australia found that the main cause of death is drowning, and that the difference in body mass between crocodile and victim is the strongest predictor of survival. For a 75-kilogram person in water, survival probability dropped sharply as crocodile size increased, becoming extremely low with animals larger than 4.5 meters. That means the victim is not simply overpowered. The victim is removed from the terms of the encounter altogether. Water becomes the weapon. Air disappears. Orientation fails. And by the time the struggle becomes visible at the surface, the decisive moment may already be over. So why not number 1? Because there is another crocodile that rivals this species in size, matches it in ambush skill, and across much of Africa exists in daily contact with people collecting water, fishing, washing clothes, boarding boats, and walking the bank. It is not only powerful enough to kill humans, it lives exactly where humans must keep returning. At number 1, Nile Crocodile. At dawn on an African river, the world seems almost peaceful. Birds cross the reeds. A canoe slides through the mist. Children move near the bank. A fisherman steps into shallow water. Along these edges, routine has repeated for generations. And that is precisely what makes the Nile crocodile so formidable. Britannica. The Nile crocodile is the largest crocodile in Africa and one of the largest living reptiles anywhere. Britannica notes that some individuals exceed 6 meters and 680 kilograms, though many adults are smaller. It is an apex predator that feeds on fish, birds, mammals, carrion, and at times human beings, usually by floating almost invisibly before lunging and dragging prey underwater to drown. Its ranking at number 1 rests on both biology and opportunity. Britannica states that the species is responsible for several hundred confirmed human deaths per year, with many attacks likely never recorded because they happen in remote rural areas. Most incidents occur near the water's edge, exactly where people wash clothing, step in and out of boats, or move along the shore. Children are considered especially vulnerable because of their small size. The IUCN Crocodile Specialist Group adds a second layer to that picture. Between 2010 and 2020, it recorded 1,005 Nile crocodile attacks, including 696 fatal and 309 non-fatal cases. But the same source warns that reporting across the species' huge African range is patchy, meaning the true toll may be higher than the database can show. What makes the Nile crocodile surpass every other predator here is the ordinary nature of the setting. A tiger often needs shrinking habitat or unusual pressure before a human becomes prey. A lion attack may peak in certain seasons and landscapes. A polar bear is tied to extreme northern conditions. But a Nile crocodile can wait in places where human life must continue, day after day, beside water that cannot be avoided. And so number one does not belong to the fastest hunter or the largest carnivore on land. It belongs to the predator that combines ambush, concealment, immense jaw power, and constant access to human routine. In that meeting point between river and survival, the Nile crocodile earns its place with grim consistency. Britannica. The deeper lesson of this list is not that nature is cruel. It is that apex predators are extraordinarily well adapted to worlds that humans only visit, cross, or borrow for a moment. In the sea, on the ice, in grassland, forest, swamp, and river, they remain what they have always been, specialists in reading movement, exploiting openings, and surviving without mercy. There are, of course, other predators that could have entered this ranking. Bull sharks, leopards, brown bears, and even large pythons have all killed people under documented conditions. But these 6 stand out because each one combines physical ability with a real history of fatal encounters. And together, they show how differently the role of a top predator can be expressed across Earth's ecosystems.